Aloha and mahalo for joining me. I'm Janin and thank you so much for being here. Today I am talking about your creativity being a gift and I can't wait to share it with you. But I want to quickly remind you that if you're not part of the Facebook group that I have it's called to Create Podcast. That's a mouthful. But you are going to miss out if you don't join. I want to invite you to go over there, and I'll share that with you in just a second. But I wanted to create something so special for everyone where I can go live every other week and then I'll be answering your questions. It's also going to be a place for you to connect with other listeners of this show where you can collaborate, grow, work together, learn. I want you to join us over in my community so that you can go deeper. We can go deeper as a community. And, here on the show, I teach a lot of things and all of that. But in the group, we can actually cultivate and help each other to grow and learn and have some accountability too, and where you can get your questions answered. So head on over there and join. Go to bit.ly/called to create podcast and I will see you there. But in the meantime, I also want to ask you another favor. If you can please take a minute to rate and review this podcast. And you can do it right down there at the bottom of this episode. If you're listening on the Apple Podcast app, you can scroll all the way down to the bottom where it says write a review and it has the stars. You can click on however many stars. But please review it because reviews are so important because they tell potential listeners and Apple that this show is worth listening to. And I would really appreciate it. Thank you so much. All right, so today I'm here to talk about how your creativity is a gift. And, I think sometimes we don't look at things as a gift. So listen in and take some notes if you have to. And if you really resonate with something, maybe even stop the podcast, put it on pause and take some notes. I want to share as much as I can with you. We have, as women, so many creative gifts, and I want you to just kind of like tune into that. Today I want to be able to talk a little bit about if you're feeling a lack of confidence in your creativity. It's interesting that we're given these creative gifts from God. And if you take a look back at when you were a child, it's interesting because in elementary school and even if you went to preschool too, you're always drawing and coloring and you have all kinds of art projects that the teacher takes you throughout the school year. And as a child, I don't know if you can remember that far back, but if not, watch little children when they're doing something creative. They just go with it. They go with the flow and they're just not afraid. They're not afraid to create and draw and color and do whatever. And so that continues all through elementary school. But what happens when you get to middle school? There's something that happens because I know I worked in middle school and I also taught a sewing and a craft class that I combined together because I had boys and girls in the class. And so what I would notice is that the kids seem to worry about not making nice art, or they're comparing themselves. In other words, they're comparing themselves to the other kids in the class, and you always see them looking over and making comments like, oh, he or she draws better than me, or whatever. I always would hear those kind of comments in every class that I had these group of kids. And I would always tell them, not to compare yourself to your neighbor or whoever's in the class that you're comparing yourself in your artwork to, because everybody is given different skills and abilities and gifts. And, over time, you have to keep working at it in order to grow it, to gain that skill of whatever you're doing in creating whatever medium that you're using and at that time in class. And I found it interesting because now I'm not a child psychologist, I'm not an expert in any of that, but I know what I know from teaching children art and sewing. Now usually the youngest I would teach is from 8 years old and up. I think the oldest student I ever had, she must have been like in her 70s. I didn't ask how old she was. That would have been kind of rude, but she had gray hair, she looked older. And the youngest, I've only ever taught once, a 7-year old. I allowed her to be in the class when I had my own business, teaching sewing and teaching people how to use their machines and, all that kind of stuff. And I allowed this 7-year old because her mom had already taught her how to use a sewing machine and how to sew a little bit. So she kind of was already familiar with all of that and she wasn't afraid. But I find that in elementary school, those young age children, they're not afraid of just trying and just going for it and just doing. Especially when you get on a sewing machine, a lot of the middle schoolers tend to be afraid, because it's got a needle and, it's this big contraption that they've never used before. But I find that they're more hesitant. They get out of that freedom to just create mode. If you've ever been in that space, you know what it's like to just go with it when you're creating. But I find that from middle school on up, a lot of people tend to hold themselves back and always going to the negative because they're comparing their artwork or they're comparing what their ability is to someone else's ability. And so I want to share with you that, if you are doing that, to just please stop, because it's not helping you grow as a person and as a human being. We're on our own journey. Everyone has their own journey to take here on earth. And, we're all on different levels of understanding and skill and knowledge and all of that kind of stuff. So if you feel like you're lacking confidence in your own creative art, now if you have a business already, then just work with what you have and just develop that muscle and that skill and do what you're good at, and don't worry about what everybody else is doing and what other people are saying. Just work at what you have. Now if you're a woman who you are creative and you want to start your own business but you haven't started yet because you're feeling like you don't have enough confidence to put your work out into the community or online or anything, let me know. Those of you who need help, I want you to send me a DM. Okay, let me know if you need help. I'm starting a coaching program for women who want to be able to sell their artwork, whatever it may be. Okay, art is just a general term for like a million different things. It could be baking, it could be cooking, knitting, crocheting, sewing, painting, glasswork, jewelry making. The list is like endless of what you can create under the art umbrella. So if you're interested, I want you to send me a direct message, because I want to be able to help you, because it is a very different feeling and a different way of thinking when you are trying to put yourself and your art out into the community and into the online space. Or like way back when, I used to have to do craft fairs before the whole online thing actually came about. When I did my crafts and my sewing projects, I would sell them at craft fairs because that was the only venue that we had 25 plus years ago. But now we have so many opportunities to get our artwork into other people's hands besides craft fairs. Now we still do have craft fairs, but there are other ways of getting your art into other people's hands. And there are people out there who would love your artwork. Now, if you lack confidence, you let me know because I want to be able to help you. It can be so much fun to sell what you make. And, it's just a whole different way of doing business and a whole different way of living and thinking and feeling because we have these gifts and you have these gifts, and I want you to be able to share it with the world because creative gifts are not meant only for you to bless your life, but it's meant to also bless other people's lives. That's why you have these creative gifts. And just think about it, like when you're creating, think about that feeling that you get. Nothing else around you matters when you're focused and you're just enjoying your work. It seems like all the world's problems just kind of disappear at that moment that you're creating. And that's what's so special when we get into that groove and that mode of creating and just loving what we're doing. And there's a study out there many years ago, my mom told me about this. She read that there was a study of, I don't know if it was specifically only for women who sewed, but it was like, I should try and find that article she told me about, but it was about how it lowered these women's blood pressure and, just you get, they got an overall feeling of health and wellness, and they just, calmed their nervous system down. But so there's a lot to be said about creating and using your creative gifts and doing what you love, and it just gives you that good feeling that we love, right? We a lot of the things that we do is because we want a good feeling. So if you are interested, again, you send me a direct message. But that's what I feel is really important, is that you use your creative gifts, because I've talked to many, many women over the last 30 years about their lives and creating and their gifts and things like that. And a lot of women, I feel so sad. A lot of these women put their creative gifts to the side because they feel like it doesn't matter, like it's not significant enough. And I want you to change that belief, because all your creative gifts and your creative desires have a purpose. So just keep that in mind. I really wanted to share something special with you today because I love getting into that creative space. I always feel like life is so much better and nothing else around me matters, and all the problems that I have disappear for that moment. And it gives me time to just reflect on, what's going on, and it helps me deal with life and all the struggles that we have, or I have, excuse me. But I hope you take that into consideration, because it doesn't matter who you are or where you come from or what your upbringing is or was. It doesn't matter how much money you make or you don't make. Being creative and using your creative gifts is special, and it has nothing to do with any of those things. Doesn't matter if you're married or you're not. It doesn't matter at all. Okay, it's meant for you, and use it. It's meant to bless you as well as other people. So if you have any questions, you let me know. Just take a moment and take the time for yourself as well. And we have to try and enjoy life, because we're going to be on earth for a while now, right? With medical technology, we can live a really long time. But take care of your health and take care of yourself and start using your creative gifts. So I wanted to share that with you today, and I wanted to share how special you are and how much worth and value you have. And so you just go for it. That's all I can say, is just go for it. But I'm here to help you if you lack confidence. Thank you so much for listening. And again, I want to invite you to join my Facebook group, and it's the Called to Create podcast. So head on over there and make sure you take care of yourself. And I hope you have a great day. Aloha.